The story centers around a total loser, who is both a clueless noob and completely broke. Bullies love power tripping and pushing him around, and the rich girl he has a crush on absolutely hates his guts. She looks down on him openly because his bank account is in the negatives. But life flips upside down when a strange virus starts turning people into zombies, ravenous for flesh, and before long, the whole world becomes a post-apocalyptic playground, where it's every man for himself. Now, no matter how much money you have, it's worthless. It's just scrap paper in this wasteland. And as fate would have it, that girl Yenna, the one who always roasted our poor guy, is now clinging to him just to stay alive. But before we dive deeper into the story, let's rewind to the beginning to get the full picture. On a typical summer morning, inside an apartment lives our main lead, Min-jun. You can tell he was up all night gaming like crazy. The computer is still even on. He's fast asleep like he's dead to the world. But the sweet dream doesn't last long before it's ruined by an ear-piercing alarm. Of course, right. Just like for many of us. The alarm is the least chill sound on earth. He struggles to crawl up and grabs his phone to turn that hellish thing off because he still has to go to school. He drags himself out of bed. When he gets to the kitchen, he finds a note left by his mom on the fridge telling him to handle things himself since she's already at work. Not long after, he puts on his uniform and steps out of the apartment into the dim morning light. Living in these slums, he can't help but stare up at the skyscrapers, the fancy ones right across the way. It seems the kid is jealous of those living up there, while he's stuck in the ghetto, rotting away in this miserable life. But whining won't solve anything. He starts his walk to school. That school is named Seongun High School. It looks like school life isn't going to be any easier for him either. Of course, there are always some kids who bully others for no reason. They're having a blast while Min-jun is sprawled out on the floor. Leading that group is Park Seong-bin, 18 years old, a junior in Class 3, as Seong-bin continues to mock him. A voice rings out making Seong-bin freeze. It's some girl with her clique of loyal followers. She's got no time for Seong-bin's childish games. He's always picking on people weaker than him. It's not like she actually likes Min-jun, though. She thinks the kid is just as pathetic. But she also thinks Seong-bin is making the school look bad with his stupid clowning around. Her name is Han Yena. She's also 18. In Class 3C, Seong-bin quickly pretends to be all buddy-buddy with Min-jun, as if they've been best bros for a long time. To him, Min-jun is just the class joke, so messing with him is no big deal. Yena stands her ground, saying he's causing an unnecessary scene in the hallway, disrupting the school's order. If Seong-bin wants to act out, he should do it off campus. Seong-bin then points out that maybe she's actually the one who hates Min-jun the most, and yet here she is acting all high and mighty. Yena defends herself, reminding him that even if she finds Min-jun eyesore, she doesn't beat him up like Seong-bin does. We come to find out that Yena and Min-jun are classmates and have known each other since middle school, just like Min-jun knows Seong-bin. Next, Seong-bin asks Yena to come along because he's meeting someone new today, but Yena flat out refuses. She still remembers what happened last time she listened to him. It turns out the last time they hung out was at Min-jun's semi-basement apartment. It was smelly and messy. It reeked of poverty. So there's no way she's ever going back there. The reason this princess has such high standards is because she lives in the high-end luxury apartment complex that the kid was just looking up at earlier. The one he can see from his place. Her parents are hospital directors and professionals. Basically, she was born with a silver spoon in her mouth. She's always posting new photos on social media and has pretty much the entire school as her fan base. On top of that, she's always at the top of her class, dominating not just with her looks, but her brains too. Rumor has it she's moving to the States next year to further her studies. She sounds like a perfect person who doesn't have a single struggle in life. But she has one major issue she just can't deal with. She absolutely loathes guys who are both weak and broke. And guess who fits that description perfectly? Yep, it's Min-jun. Let's travel back in time together to get a better understanding of this. Back in 8th grade when Min-jun and Yena were in the same class, he mustered up all his courage to talk to her, but she only responded with a tone full of contempt and found him annoying. To her, he was just some smelly kid who followed her around like a persistent mosquito, and she hated it. Even though they lived in the same direction, she couldn't stand walking next to him. She told him to take a different route, so she wouldn't have to put up with his scent. From then on, Min-jun knew for sure this girl hated his guts. And speaking of smells, he noticed she always smelled amazing to him. That must be the fragrance of wealth. Under normal circumstances, after being humiliated and rejected, most people would start to hate the person who did that. But Min-jun's feelings for her didn't waver. Our boy is just blindly devoted for real. He always sat near her, even though she never stopped mocking and belittling him with biting words. Year after year, same school, same class, same unrequited love. Despite her constant ridicule, he still didn't give up. At some point, he started to ask himself, if only a crazy person would love a girl, mocking me every chance she gets. But that's just how Min-jun's life is. Getting physically wrecked by Seong-bin and mentally tortured by Yena. Welcome to the life of a total, certified loser. Later, Min-jun hangs out with two friends, and they're both geeking out over anime like true otakus, especially the big guy. He seems obsessed with anime, while the skinny guy next to him, Bae Sun-ho, can't really keep up with the anime hype. Meanwhile, Min-jun just sits there in silence, minding his business like an invisible NPC. Let me introduce these two to you. The skinny one is 18-year-old Bae Sun-ho, and the big guy is Byung-jun, same age. Sun-ho and Byung-jun aren't in the same class as Min-jun, but they're his only friends who share a similar vibe with him. Only difference is they don't get bullied, unlike Min-jun, and he's feeling pretty salty about it. Deadass. The only explanation he can come up with is they're just lucky. While he's catching all the hands and BS this world has to offer, his train of thought gets cut off when his friends ask if he wants to go to Lumina's concert. If he's down, they'll grab an extra ticket. The model on the phone looks fire, but Min-jun couldn't care less about that anymore. Honestly, he's totally over these idols now. Of course, his friends think he's missing out. Come to think of it, they're starting to notice that Min-jun has been looking like a zombie lately. As they head outside, they can't help but drop some colorful comments about Min-jun being depressed for no reason. In class, Min-jun just wants the day to end, so he can escape this pathetic life. Then he overhears Seong-bin and his lackeys talking about some strange guy who dared to glare at them. When they tried to start something, that guy looked pretty legit, but they're sure that Seong-bin could easily clock him. It seems like this guy defected from North Korea to South Korea. They were mocking him for abandoning his parents and running away just to save his own skin. While they were talking, they were making fun of Kang. Hak-chun appeared right there and heard it all, and naturally, he wasn't going to let them slide for insulting him. Seong-bin's ego was bruised when Hak-chun looked at him like he was a nobody, so Seong-bin grabbed him by the collar. But this tough guy didn't flinch at all at this wannabe gangsta act. He just calmly gave him a warning, telling Seong-bin to watch his damn mouth unless he wanted to catch these hands. Rich kid Seong-bin was still being a hardhead, refusing to let go. But before things went too far, his lackeys quickly jumped in to de-escalate and cool him down. Finally, Seong-bin let Hak-chun go, but before walking away, he didn't forget to drop a death threat for good measure. Meanwhile, Min-jun just sat there in dead silence in the back, thinking to himself, wondering when he'd finally escape this school-shaped hellhole. After class, Min-jun trudged his way home, his head spinning with all sorts of thoughts. He was seriously considering just dropping out and being done with it. It felt like the only way to escape this miserable existence. He was determined, no more looking back. Right then, Seong-bin and his goons blocked his way. They seemed stoked to see him. Seong-bin wanted some cigs and ordered our boy here to go ask some girl at the convenience store to buy them. Since they were all underage, they couldn't buy them themselves anyway. Of course, Min-jun knew full well this was just another one of Seong-bin's power trips to bully him, and he'd reached his breaking point. Instead of caving in, he ghosted them and kept walking home. Seong-bin was livid that Min-jun dared to ignore him, so as you'd expect, he and his lackeys beat Min-jun to a pulp. Then they dumped him at an abandoned construction site. Sang-bin grabbed a brick and repeatedly smashed it against Min-jun's head. They hoped this beating would teach that little punk a lesson in obedience. But Min-jun had reached his breaking point. With a broken, desperate voice, he told Sang-bin to just kill him already. He had lost all will to live. Death seemed like the only way out. For some reason, that answer just pissed Sang-bin off even more. Enraged, he delivered one last brutal kick. Before leaving, that bastard issued one final threat. If Min-jun dared to commit suicide and mentioned them in a suicide note, he promised to track down his mother and take her out right then and there. With that, they left Min-jun abandoned at the site, completely broken in body and spirit. As dawn broke, Min-jun stumbled and dragged himself home after everything. There was only one thought left in his head, wishing the world would just end tomorrow. But he knew that wasn't going to happen. So, the best option was to go to the roof of that luxury apartment he always used to stare at and jump off. It would all be over in just a few minutes. With that plan in mind, he started walking toward the apartment complex. He was ready to end it all. Right then he ran into Yeon-ah, the girl who hated his guts more than anyone. Just the sight of him made her skin crawl. She snapped at him, asking what he was doing loitering in this neighborhood. Since he didn't live there and looked so beat up, she was sure he wasn't there to deliver anything. To her, he looked more like a thief than anything else. Of course, she didn't miss the chance to remind him how pathetic he was. Well, that was exactly why he was there. To end it all, once and for all. Meanwhile, Yeon-ah grilled him about his bruised face, wondering who had beaten him into such a state. Yeon-ah was genuinely furious because he never once fought back, taking a beating like a dog without fighting back. She went on another long rant. Finally, the young man turned on his heel. He walked in the opposite direction of the apartment building. That stuck-up girl kept nagging him, whining about how he dared to ghost her. But eventually she gave up and decided to spill the tea on this whole mess tomorrow. After that, Min Jin returned to his cramped, smelly apartment to decompress. Stressed out, he turned on his computer and put on his headset to lose himself in the world of gaming. Reflecting on everything that had just happened, he realized she wasn't exactly wrong. He really deserved it. That's also the reason he was never going back to school again. Starting tomorrow, he would find a job and help his mother cover the living expenses. As night fell, Min Jin was still intensely slaughtering hordes of zombies in a first-person shooter. Suddenly, his squad mates in the live chat announced they were done and about to log off. This left Min Jin completely stunned. After all, it was only 10 p.m. There were still 2 full hours until midnight. Right then, the guys in chat mentioned some viral news about the world going to hell. The world outside was already in total chaos. And as if on cue, Min Jin heard a commotion outside. He stood up and cautiously walked toward the front door when someone began pounding on it incessantly. Before opening up, he stole a glance through the peephole. It looked like one of his upstairs neighbors, trembling uncontrollably, begging him to open the door. Hearing this, Min Jin figured the guy was just wasted again. But he had no idea. That man was no longer his drunk neighbor. He made a huge mistake when he opened the door. The first thing he noticed was the blood smeared all over the man, with a massive gash tearing open his stomach. Even then, Min Jin, he still thought the guy must have been seriously injured and was about to call 911. But then that zombified freak let out a horrific screech before lunging at Min Jin. They both hit the floor. The zombie pinned him down, but Min Jin finally managed to kick him back. Realizing the guy had completely lost his mind, he scrambled to his feet and locked the door. His heart was pounding through his chest. His hands and legs were shaking like crazy. There was no way. That psycho was just his normal neighbor. He grabbed his phone to call the cops, but he couldn't get a signal. Just then, he noticed all the emergency alerts popping up on his screen. They reported unexplained attacks taking place in Seoul and other unidentified areas. Everyone was ordered to stay indoors for their safety. Then he heard chaos erupting outside, right above his basement apartment. He cracked the window a bit to peek out. What he saw was a scene straight out of hell. People were literally tearing each other apart. He even saw his neighbor, still out there, wandering the streets and wreaking havoc. Suddenly worried about his mom, he tried to call her, but the call wouldn't go through. As the night grew darker, Min Jin turned off all the lights and curled up in a corner under a blanket. He tried connecting to any network, but it was hopeless. No signal, no updates. He turned on the TV to find some answers about this total mess. The news anchor was talking about a series of brutal murders being carried out by unidentified civilians across the country. The government labeled it as acts of indiscriminate terrorism and said they were investigating the cause and hunting down anyone responsible. But no detailed information has been released yet. The news anchor is urging everyone to stay indoors, lock all doors and windows, and avoid any contact with the outside world. The following news updates were also broadcast, revealing that Busan has also fallen. Similar violent incidents are being reported, not only in Seoul, Busan and Incheon, but also in smaller towns. Police and military forces are being deployed, but the situation seems to have spiraled out of control. Min Jin feels completely hopeless, as he is constantly bombarded by horrifying news. He is so stunned that he feels like he's dreaming, like a terrible nightmare, that he cannot wake up from. Because based on what he just heard, it seems the world has been taken over by zombies. But those things only happen in games and movies. It's too ridiculous to be real. And yet, everything he has seen so far fits together. He wants answers, and huddling in this dim apartment isn't going to help him at all. He decides to step outside, to lock the front door of the building behind him. But before opening the door, he has to take a peek through the peephole first, just in case some zombies are lurking around. That would be game over. Seeing that the coast is clear, he cracks the door and slips outside. As he climbs the stairs to the ground floor, the silence is eerie as hell. Just as he reaches the main entrance, he pokes his head out and sees a zombie strolling down the street. Immediately, he slams the door shut and locks every single bolt. His next mission is to check if there's anyone left alive upstairs, but with it being deathly quiet like this, there's probably not a soul left. Well, for now, let's put this risky business on hold. He'll hole up until tomorrow morning. He's dead sure that the military and the police will show up to rescue him eventually. He turns on the TV to see if there's any news. But before he can even catch a glimpse or get any decent info, the station kicks the bucket completely. He tries to lie down on the bed to get some sleep. But with all this chaos going on, sleep is the last thing on his mind. Above all, an uneasy feeling is gnawing at him from the inside. Just yesterday, he wanted to end it all because life was so bitter, even wishing the whole world would just go to hell. Who would have thought he'd actually get what he wished for? But it doesn't even matter. His life hasn't gotten any easier. In fact, now he has to struggle just to stay alive. At this point, he realizes nothing has changed. He was miserable before, and he's still miserable now. So this whole zombie apocalypse thing doesn't even faze him. Honestly, he's already hit rock bottom anyway. The next morning, the streets are a total mess. Abandoned cars everywhere, and zombies are roaming the blocks like they own the place. June finally opens the front door and dares to show his face outside. As he looks around, the air feels off. The metallic stench of blood is unbearably thick. He can't stand it, so he slams the door shut, deadbolting it just to be safe. Going out unprepared would be straight-up suicide. He wanders back into the kitchen. Luckily, his food stash is still looking good. 4 packs of ramen, 6 cups of instant noodles, some instant rice, and even some raw rice. That's enough to keep him from starving for 2 weeks. He has 3 bottles of water, and fortunately, the tap is still running. Believe it or not, the gas is still on too. If he rations everything, he could probably last a month. That's plenty of time for someone to find him. Maybe a rescue team will come to help him escape this place. For now, his biggest worry is his mother. With the internet down, he has no idea how she's doing. All he can do now is pray that she's safe and sound. Suddenly, he remembers there are 5 households in this building. One of them is a college student, living in the attic room. He vaguely recalls, apparently that player brings his girlfriend over every Tuesday, or some Netflix and chill. And yesterday just happened to be Tuesday, meaning those 2 kids are stuck up there. June summons all his courage and starts heading up to the higher floors. On his way, he checks every apartment, but doesn't see a single soul. In the end, only the rooftop room remains. As he climbs, he hopes to find the couple safe and sound, but strangely enough, the door to the roof is wide open. Once he gets up there, he notices that the student's room door is open too. He naturally steps inside, but he'd have been better off never seeing what was waiting for him. On the other side of the room, the girlfriend is already toast, and that student has turned into a zombie, craving fresh meat. Luckily, June doesn't see the corpse, since it's in his blind spot. The only thing he sees is a bloody mess, splattered everywhere enough to make him get cold feet. He quickly abandons his plan to explore the apartment any further. But while he's trying to sneak away, he accidentally knocks over a potted plant that immediately catches the zombie's attention. Hearing the savage growls from inside, June hauls ass running for his life, but in his clumsiness he trips and falls. The zombie lunges out of the room and pins its prey down instantly. June thinks fast and uses the zombie's own momentum against it. He just ducks down low, letting the zombie fly over his head, then gives the bastard a shove, sending it falling off the roof of the building. The sight leaves him breathless for a moment. He collapses to his knees, his limbs shaking, completely drained of strength. Without wasting another second, he bolts back downstairs. He deadbolts the door and locks himself inside his apartment. He's still shaking from the encounter. After that life-and-death encounter with the monster, he still can't wrap his head around the truth that the student from the rooftop room, the one he once saw as a glimmer of hope, has now turned into a mindless zombie. And what's even more heartbreaking for him is the fact that he personally shoved him off the highest floor, leading to such a tragic death. But then he tries to convince himself that it wasn't his fault. What he did was strictly self-defense. It was the student who attacked him first. Another night falls, and just like the night before, June has to pass the time in this dark basement apartment. June just sits there in silence. The guilt over the student's death eats away at him from the inside. He stands up and walks out toward the street, hoping to see that student again. Right in front of him is a zombie. When the zombie turns around to face him, he notices the student's broken neck, dangling over its right shoulder. Witnessing this, June feels a mix of relief and pure terror. He's relieved because his senior is still technically alive, but what terrifies him is the cold hard fact that the guy in front of him is no longer human. He whispers an apology to his sonbai and closes the door. This encounter teaches him a lesson. These people are nothing more than zombies now. The next day arrives, marking the 3rd day since the apocalypse began. He prepares a hot pot meal for himself. Actually, he's trying to use up all the food. That requires actual cooking. He plans to rely on those elaborate ingredients while the gas lasts, then switch to prepackaged food later. Thought keeps lingering in his mind. He shouldn't waste any more time waiting for help. If the food runs out before that happens, he'll be a goner. For the first time, he feels relieved because the entire building is currently free of any zombies. There was only that rooftop student, but he's already out of the building. To grab the attention of rescue teams or any other survivors, he thought about lighting a signal fire on the roof. Moreover, he's considering leaving this building soon. A few days ago, he had already given up on life. So even if he bites the dust out there, it's no big deal. Besides, he's already survived 2 brushes with death. That only makes him more confident to fight these monsters. If he happens to run into those zombies, they don't scare him anymore. Suddenly, the phone miraculously rings. It's his mom calling. He doesn't waste a split second before picking up. His worried mother quickly asks how he's doing. He quickly reassures her that he's home alone and checks on her situation. She reveals she met the military during the evacuation the other day and is now at a shelter. In Seongnam, she tells him not to worry about her and advises him to stay indoors. She promises to ask the rescue team to come get him. After just a short exchange, their call was cut off because the signal died. Total bummer. Min-jun was stoked to hear his mom's voice. It proves she's still alive and well. Then, messages start flooding in all at once. Turns out it's his two otaku buddies. The fact that they can text means they're still flexing in their hideout. Looks like these guys are just chilling somewhere. Who else would be joking around in the middle of this chaos? But since his two bros are close to each other, Min-jun is dead sure they've helped each other beat this hard mode game. Counting those two friends, he's only confirmed his mom is still healthy. There's one more person he wants to know is still kicking, and of course that's Han In-ho, that lady who's always trolling him. Out of everyone he knows, this baddie lives closest to him. But Min-jun isn't sure she'd even bother visiting his dump of an apartment, not after she made it clear she looks down on it. Rewind to the past. Done. Bin was partying hard with his crew at Min-jun's place. One of the guys invited In-ho over, and they were trolling her, because she had no clue the place she was heading to was the home of Min-jun, the person she absolutely detests. They were all cracking up, while Min-jun's blood pressure spiked at the news she was coming. Eventually she showed up, and when she saw this cramped dumpster of a place, she just froze, honestly. She was hesitating to even cross that threshold and step foot into this filthy cheap hole. Finally, she decided to say goodbye without even stepping inside. She found the smell of cigarettes revolting, and the floor was all sticky and moldy. Plus, she was fuming because they didn't bother to tell her. The place she was visiting was Min-jun's house. Poor Min-jun was shook, seeing just how much she disgusted him. What really killed his mood back then wasn't that Park Song-bin and his ride or die homies had invaded his home, but Han In-ho's gag reflex reaction when she saw his nest. Now, while meditating on the toilet, he's curious if she's still talking big. But even if she turned into a zombie, Min-jun wouldn't be that heartbroken. After all, Min-jun's dad is a hospital director, so he's bragging that his dad might know which virus caused this. Total clusterfuck, making him a prime candidate to find the cure for this disease. But on second thought, he shouldn't be worrying about whether she's still alive. He should be looking out for himself. Anyway, with her rich kid status, she's probably already made a clean getaway. But then a familiar voice calls out to him. He suddenly feels a bit unsettled hearing that voice. The voice on the other side of the door keeps yelling for him to open up. Finally, he recognizes the voice. Turns out Han In-ho is the one standing outside his apartment. Through the window, she's trying to call him while keeping her voice as low as possible. But her voice eventually gives her away, causing a swarm of zombies to start rushing toward her. Seeing those things chasing her, she screams even louder for him to open the door. Finally, Min-jun opens the door, pulls her inside, and locks it back up. For sure, she's totally freaking out and drenched in sweat. No matter how deep she breathes, it's not enough to calm her down. Min-jun worriedly asks if she's okay, but he's even more mind-boggled because he has no clue how she ended up all the way here. Without explaining a single thing, she grabs his shirt and gives him a sudden hug, which completely catches our guy off guard. He's literally frozen for like 5 seconds. She keeps tugging and pulling at his shirt. Finally, he regains his composure and asks what's up. Min-jun asks her if she's doing all right. In-ho lets go of him and thanks him profusely. This is the gentlest she's ever been with him. She even confesses that if he hadn't saved her, at the last second she'd be zombie bait by now. Her unexpected thank you leaves him stunned. He turns beet red and admits he's just glad she's safe and sound. Looking around, In-ho realizes only Min-jun is in the apartment. He explains that his mom went out and hasn't been able to make it back for 3 days. But luckily he managed to get a hold of her, and it seems she's okay. Anyway, since a military unit picked her up, she should be fine. Hearing that, In-ho is happy too. Since they're on the topic of parents, he's curious about how her family is doing. She then confesses that at least her dad is okay. He's hiding in a safe place. As for her mom, In-ho looks worried for a second. But then she quickly pivots and says her parents are doing fine. She changes the subject and asks for some water. After all, she's been parched for days. She also asks for a power bank to bring her phone back to life. Time flies by in a flash, but then we're introduced to another massive problem. This girl is thirsty as hell. She's basically bleeding him dry. Our guy's strategy of saving every drop is being wrecked by the way she's chugging that water. Min-jun is seriously worried, because if the water supply runs dry, then they're totally cooked. But at the same time, he understands her. She just barely escaped a massive zombie onslaught to get here. Min-jun decides to ask if she came here straight from her house, because dragging herself to his place for shelter doesn't make any sense at all. In-ho has actually been fending for herself outside for several days now. She hasn't even had a chance to go home. This news leaves Min-jun stunned. She starts by recounting the conversation they both had 3 days ago. After that, she went out to kill some time, and that's when all hell broke loose. Everyone was scared out of their wits. She ran for her life, not knowing what to do. She booked it, as fast as she could, and finally hid in a nearby stairwell. After a long, agonizing wait, hoping someone would come to the rescue, but no one ever came. Min-jun is speechless, learning. In-ho has been surviving on her own out there for 3 whole days. Luckily for her, there was an unlocked door near the stairs. A small meeting room became her lifesaver and kept her alive. But it didn't have much. The only thing she had was a water bottle, and that's how she survived the whole time she was there. But by the 3rd day, In-ho was completely drained and couldn't take it anymore. She had to find food and water to save herself, so she stepped back out, hoping to find a way home and run into the police. If she got lucky or so, she thought, because the only people she met were brainless monsters, tearing each other apart and slaughtering people left and right. It was a horrific reality, and her path back home was completely blocked. So she tried a different way, sneaking through the back alleys to get to her neighborhood. She realized she was also passing right through Min-jun's area. Sadly, even taking the alleys, she found another road blocked off by zombies. There was no way she could slip through without being spotted. But she still risked it. While running, she remembered Min-jun lived nearby, and she vaguely recalled the location from her previous visit. She prayed to God that Min-jun was still sane, since he had made it home safely 3 days ago. Not knowing what else to call those things, she outmaneuvered the walkers until she got close to Min-jun's place, and that is why she's here. Min-jun is absolutely floored that she dared to flex like that outside and make such bold moves, but she's grateful and beyond relieved to find him home. Otherwise, it would have been game over for her. In-ho stands up, complaining that she feels gross and wants a shower if the water still works. Glancing at her sweat-drenched underarms, Min-jun accidentally looks like a creep when he suggests she change into a fresh set of clothes. But In-ho totally misreads his intentions and starts throwing hands and kicking him for making such an indecent proposal. The poor guy gets called a piece of trash while being pummeled, even though he has no idea what he did wrong. In-ho is exhausted and really wants that shower, but at least she's polite enough to ask him first. Min-jun stammers as he tells her to make herself at home, still wondering why he just caught those heavy kicks from her earlier. While she's freshening up, Min-jun is lost in thought. Before she arrived, he had planned to head out and fend for himself, but now she's stuck with him. He feels guilty about abandoning her just to save himself. But at the same time, if they stay put, their resources aren't exactly infinite. Food-wise, he only stockpiled enough for 1 person for a month. Now their supplies have been automatically cut in half. The situation is truly tense as hell, forcing him to overthink everything. But our guy is also shook to see Han-Jaina acting all high and mighty, insisting on taking a shower at his place. It's as nonsensical as the apocalypse itself. Recalling their encounters at school, he remembers he was so cold, she wouldn't even give him the time of day. He was just an eyesore to her like some lowly insect. Min-jun is taken aback when she asks for a change of clothes, since she's been rocking that same outfit for 3 days straight. Hurrying to meet her request, the boy scrambles around looking for clothes, asking her what style she prefers. In-ho couldn't care less about keeping up appearances in times like these, so whatever works. To top it off, she even has the nerve to call him a creep. Wait, why is he catching strays all of a sudden? When Min-jun hands over the clothes, he's a bit awkward. In-ho immediately complains they stink and demands something else. But the bad news is, all of his clothes smell the same way, so it doesn't make a difference. Dressed in the new gear, In-ho is beyond annoyed by the unbearable stench, but she just has to suck it up until her own clothes are dry. She tells him he should really use some deodorant, thinking to herself that the rumors about single guys being slobs are definitely true. It doesn't help that she's super sensitive to smells. She just laughs it off for now. Thinking about their life or death situation, hanging by a thread, it's almost funny. Min-jun has no clue what's going on. With her attitude, he figures she's losing her mind if she still cares about fragrance in the middle of a zombie apocalypse. Outside, the zombies are snarling and wrecking everything in sight. Meanwhile, inside, Min-jun and In-ho, she had just finished eating. She wants to know his take on their plan, believing that if they just hold out, rescue will eventually show up. Min-jun reveals that his original plan before she arrived was to move to a new spot tomorrow. In-ho thinks that idea is straight up cap. She's thinking, why leave a place with food and water? When he's already got a stash, it's a total no-brainer. She's absolutely terrified, since she almost kicked the bucket on her way here, so she is not about to risk her life again. He clarifies that, now that they're a duo, he doesn't intend to go through with that anymore. He also thinks they should follow In-ho's lead and just wait for rescue for now. But then In-ho loses it, confessing they're in danger of running out of supplies. Honestly, I've lost track of her logic. Wait, so she wants our boy to head out there solo. In-ho is totally spiraling. making no sense at all, while Minjun explains that they could easily raid the upstairs apartments to gather resources and boost their survival odds. But there's a chance they'll run into those zombies because he only knows for sure the rooftop is safe. And if it really comes down to it, if the food and water actually run out, they won't have any choice but to step outside. In-ho is shook and flat out rejects that idea, even though Min-jun tried his hardest to explain that under the circumstances it's a must. Right now she doesn't want to think about those doom and gloom scenarios. She thinks he's only eager to go outside because he hasn't seen the hellscape it has become. Zombies are crawling everywhere, tearing apart anyone they see. Min-jun argues that for her, to even reach this neighborhood was a massive flex, and if she could navigate through a mile of zombies, then maybe their chances aren't actually that cooked. In-ho is shocked that he actually has the audacity to say those things. Instead of Min-jun overthinking it, Min believes that, at the end of the day, they are facing zombies and he has witnessed it firsthand. One bite and everyone turns into a zombie, but he doesn't really care about his own life, so he's not afraid of those worst-case scenarios. In his life, even if he dies, nothing would really change. Hearing that is so depressing for real. Instead of comforting or encouraging him, Gina just brushes him off and tells him he's only thinking about himself. She doesn't want to turn into a zombie and wants to finish her studies abroad. That's honestly hilarious. Like, who's gonna teach her a zombie professor? Min-jun recalls how In-ho survived by avoiding contact with the zombies, so maybe that's exactly what they need to focus on. Furthermore, he adds that not every zombie is capable of sprinting full speed toward them. Some are badly injured and move slow as hell. Some can't even walk and just stand there like NPCs. Plus, even taking their running speed into account, they're still slower than a normal person. So they have a solid chance to at least outrun those zombies. To help her visualize it, Min-jun brings up a game of tag. He thinks if they treat it like they're playing a game, it'll be a piece of cake. It even adds a bit of a thrill instead of just pure fear. In-ho looks at him with the most dead-eyed stare ever. She can't believe this guy is casually suggesting turning a zombie apocalypse into a giant game of tag. Enough with the trolling. In-ho admits she's absolutely spent. She just wants to sleep. She's been sleep-deprived for days. Min-jun decides to get a bunch of blankets for them, then casually pushes their beds close together. In-ho is suspicious of his intentions and orders him to sleep near the bathroom. But he's not having it, honey. He reminds her that this is his house, and he doesn't want to sleep by the toilet door. Seeing she can't win the argument, In-ho agrees, realizing she's in a stranger's home. She agrees to sleep there, but then she acts even more extra by casually saying she'll go sleep out in the hallway instead. Min-jun is so confused by this girl. He tries to lure her back in, but Gina reminds him that this is his place, so he should just sleep comfortably. Min-jun emphasizes that he doesn't want her going out. In-ho bursts out laughing, finding it hilarious that he fell for a simple joke. Sleeping in the kitchen is fine. They kept going back and forth like that. And finally our boy loses the petty argument and reluctantly ends up sleeping near the bathroom door. He's still grateful to be under a safe roof, because that's what matters most. And while he appreciates In-ho's presence, he also thinks she talks way too much. It's honestly funny. The night drags on with the sounds of zombies growling outside. In-ho is so restless, she can't sleep at all. Suddenly she calls his name, making him jump up in a start. He's absolutely shook when In-ho personally asks him to come sleep in her room because she's scared to be alone. I really love this soft moment. It shows the character's vulnerability, even if that's not how they usually act. And well, that's how it went. Our boy goes to her room and sits in the corner, listening to the zombies outside while she sleeps soundly. He just sits there, keeping watch for her. Gina explains that she had heard those horrifying sounds countless times while hiding outside, but she still hasn't gotten used to it. It's truly terrifying. Nothing else compares. In that miserable situation, she confesses she misses her mom. But our boy just sits there in silence, without saying a single word. By morning, the zombies are as noisy as ever. Luckily, Ayana slept like a log. Meanwhile, Min-jun had a rough time because she was snoring away for hours on end. He finds it pretty amusing, since just a moment ago she was too scared to even close her eyes. But now she's out like a light. At 9 a.m., Gina finally wakes up totally refreshed. But she's also surprised to see him putting on his jacket to go out. Min-jun explains that he wants to head up to the rooftop to check out the situation. She immediately worries that some infected zombie might suddenly jump out and attack him up there, even though he had already insisted that wouldn't happen. But Min-jun brushes it off as no big deal and says he'll be careful to avoid that kind of ending. He asks her to come along but gets a cold rejection in return. So she's just gonna stay here while he goes out, huh? Min-jun steps into the stairwell and suddenly notices a water stain on the glass that wasn't there before. This is a bad omen, because glass has its limits after all. It won't hold up for long. He gets startled when he hears In-ho's voice from behind. She confesses that this place reeks. He turns around, surprised to see her following him out like a lost puppy. She has a bad gut feeling, but the pair still decides to head up. Once there, Minjun is horrified to find the body of the older man's girlfriend on the rooftop. She has been murdered. Seeing her meet such a tragic end, the young man offers a prayer. In-ho was waiting outside, and she feels relieved that there's no one inside. Minjun breaks the sad news and thinks it's best for both of them not to go in there. They discuss a plan to start a fire, hoping a rescue helicopter will spot them. But even that needs specific timing to work out. Gina suggests they prep something beforehand, something that will catch fire instantly, as soon as they hear a helicopter. Minjun, stubborn as ever, argues that if they light it like that, the helicopter won't even bat an eye. Then she starts wondering again, or maybe we should head out and look for other survivors around here. This guy actually starts yelling to get attention. Talk about a total fail in strategy, as Minjun pointed out when he warned her about the shattered glass. It's completely wrecked, and so the two young troublemakers have to survive together in this middle-of-nowhere dump. While stuck and feeling lonely, that girl suddenly asks him about his MBTI type. To put it simply, it's a personality test, categorized into 16 different types. Seriously, you guys should just go online and take it. Anyway, a guy like him has obviously never heard of it before. She assumes he probably doesn't even use Instagram, and even if he did, she bets her life that he doesn't have more than 50 followers. Man, this girl is just sitting there roasting him for no reason. Then she gets curious about what he does for fun. And when he starts geeking out about games and that legendary zombie game Red Dead, she laughs her head off. She mocks him, saying, "Who has time for zombie games anymore?" When the whole world is experiencing a literal apocalypse in real life. Anyway, back to the MBTI thing. She's 100% sure he's an introvert. I mean, obviously. A total nerd who stays cooped up inside all day and never socializes with anyone. Then she asks if he's more of a wing-it person or a planner, another category from that MBTI chart. Minjun thinks to himself that this girl has such a savage mouth, she'd probably keep yapping even on her deathbed. Since he knows nothing about MBTI, the guy can't even wrap his head around her bizarre personality. The truth is, before the apocalypse, she wouldn't have even given him the time of day. But regardless, the fact remains, he's stuck with his former, unrequited crush. She just keeps playfully nudging him and talking nonstop, while the guy, introverted Minjun, wonders if this experience is a blessing or a curse. He never could have imagined finding her again under these circumstances. The guy is completely starstruck and frozen, even though he never expected this outcome to actually happen. Realizing he's spacing out, she yells to grab his attention, shouting his name and asking why he's ghosting her. Minjun gets kicked and snaps back to reality. He realizes he was just zoning out. This leaves her totally shook and her ego bruised because of the fact that some guy dared to freeze up in front of her beauty. Well, she kind of has a point. A few days fly by just like that. She just sits there chillin', reading comics leisurely. Gina asks him if the laundry is done yet. She's starving. She's a total deadweight, doing nothing but mooching off the guy. It gets to the point where Minjun is so fed up he just wants to bolt on his own. He really doesn't want to be a slave, forced to do her laundry. Classic case of someone who can't express their feelings properly. Since the power is obviously dead, the guy has to wash everything by hand. Luckily, the water is still running. But the food situation is another story. Once everything is finished, he tells her he's heading out. Gina warns him, "Don't you dare come back late." She wants him back within 30 minutes, and even threatens him if he's late. Minjun is honestly completely done with this, but he heads out anyway. His daily job is to patrol the neighborhood, at least once, using safe routes. After studying the zombies' behavior, he draws a conclusion. They act exactly like they do in video games, almost like they're rabid. They only attack the living, and don't even bother with dead bodies or their own infected kind. He also noticed that their vision is pretty trash. They won't recognize you from a distance, but these traits also vary from one to another. Their hearing is incredibly sharp, so Minjun has to tread very lightly. Lastly, they seem to hate sunlight, and they don't lurk around much during the day compared to the night. Because of that crucial detail, he thinks that staying away from the night is absolutely vital. Another detail that stands out is that these zombies' behavior is quite similar to the game that he often plays. He wonders to himself if he's just being delusional by comparing these two situations. Or maybe it's just a funny coincidence. But if that's really the case, if the zombies are truly like the ones in the game, then Minjun fears the worst is yet to come. And before long, this world will surely come to an end. Back at the apartment, Yeon-ah is bored to death reading comics. She doesn't know what to do with herself, and is even more annoyed because Minjun is late again. Her frustration grows after noticing that lately he keeps talking back to her. This needs to be straightened out soon. She really treats him like her personal errand boy. To her amazement, Yeon-ah hears the sound of a helicopter from outside. It sounds promising, but in the end she couldn't pull anything off anyway. The last time a helicopter came, the two of them tried a strategy of lighting fires and begging for help. But that strategy was a total fail, so they've completely given up on it. Time passes, and now Yona is starting to get really worried. She's restless and biting her nails waiting for Minjun to come home. A whole hour has passed since he left, and there's still no sign of him, which is enough to make her freak out. She wonders if he got attacked or something. To mask her fear, she even promises to give him a piece of her mind when he gets back. She thinks this guy must have some weird fetish, where he only listens after getting a beating. Besides that, Yona, she was absolutely convinced that she wouldn't let him leave the house starting tomorrow morning. But here's the funny thing. She waited until sunset and he still hadn't come home. Yona was worried sick, just hoping he hadn't died in some random ditch. Out there as the sun goes down, even more zombies are out hunting for him. She wallowed in terror, almost accepting the fact that he would never return. She pleaded for him to come back, terrified of being left all alone again. Fortunately, our guy has a heart of gold and made it back. He wanted to show her something, but he didn't expect her to look so miserable. Gina's eyes were welling up and she was on the verge of tears. After all, he had been gone for over 3 hours. The first thing she did was punch him for being so stupid, but he stopped her, insisting she see what he had just found. He had picked up a flyer from that helicopter earlier. He had gone to personally gather them all up, which is why he was so late. Yan-Ah was startled as she read the flyer, unable to process what the hell was happening. It was a notice for a total lockdown of the gangbook area on the 10th of the month, and that spelled trouble for them because they were right there. There was only 1 day left. There was no way they could survive. Minjun told her to read the back of the flyer too. It talked about the safety status of the regions. As it turned out, their neighborhood had a much lower infection rate compared to the rest of the area. Some places were safe, while others were classified as extremely dangerous. Basically, you're dead meat if you even set foot in those zones. The worst part was, their area was also at risk of reaching danger levels soon. So the original plan to hunker down was now backfiring. Yan-Ah asked whether they can leave the area with the time they have left. No, she's just good at asking questions. But while she's rambling on, Minjun is racking his brain for both of them, wondering how terrifying a very dangerous area would actually be. Even though he has his doubts about the flyer, he still has no other choice but to accept the information he's been given. Knowing that places like Noan and Uijeongbu are a no-go, they won't be able to escape through North Seoul. Minjun declares their objective: they must take every chance to reach the Han River. The fastest way to get there is through Songdong or Dongdaemun. But since those areas look particularly sketchy, they'll have to bet on their luck by going through the eastern sector. Since time is running out, they have to hit the road immediately. Minjun suggests aiming for the Yeoncheon-dong area. It's fine to take a bit of a detour. That place is safe. And he's totally convinced, hook, line, and sinker, that the military or police will hold those safe zones, meaning their chances of survival will be way higher. Yeon-Ah is left speechless by his top-tier strategy. Up until now, she only saw him as a loser, who knew he actually had a game plan to get them out. Minjun is in no mood for jokes. He emphasizes that they have to leave right here, right now. Yeon-Ah hesitates a bit, looking like she's not quite ready to head out, probably because she still wants to eat dinner. After all, even Minjun agrees that leaving at dawn would be smarter, since zombies are super aggressive at night. Plus, she's skeptical about their chances of escaping to the safe zone. Gina suggests staying a few more days. Who knows, maybe someone will come to the rescue. That kind of naive thinking forces Minjun to be firmer with her. He coldly reminds her that he wouldn't mind leaving her behind to die a miserable death in this basement. But either way, he's leaving tomorrow. She is left speechless, realizing she has to cave in. She accepted it and then turned to pack her things. He showed her a handbag she could use. The next day at dawn, it was time to hit the road. Even though she didn't want to, Yona had to go. Minjun asked her if she was really okay with leaving her father's hospital behind. He remembered her dad worked at a hospital, so he thought they should at least stop by to check. Upon hearing that, Gina had a look of confusion and anxiety. Then she played it cool and argued it wasn't necessary, claiming her parents had already fled to Gangbuk safely. This was the truth she couldn't bring herself to say at first, the fact that her parents had abandoned her. Minjun was speechless but didn't say anything. The two of them went outside, walking slowly and stealthily. He was the one leading the way and clearing the path for them. Thanks to that, they managed to clear a path, even while zombies were running wild. They kept walking until they were out of the neighborhood. Gina was truly shocked that escaping was that easy. She thought it was just her overreacting earlier that had made her so terrified. Regardless, he still warned her to be careful in dark spots, because the zombies are hyperactive there. It's true zombies don't attack as aggressively during the day, but that's not the case for all of them. They walked for a while. She was surprised that the Yeoncheon-dong area was so far away. Minjun encouraged her to keep going, even though she was complaining and wishing they had a bike for these situations. He agreed with her point, but reminded her they couldn't use public e-scooters because the connection was down. But the interesting thing was, he noticed there wasn't a single bicycle in sight. Yeona suddenly demanded a 5-minute break, since they had already walked quite a distance. She was exhausted and her feet were killing her. Minjun thought for a moment, then teased her by suggesting they go get a coffee to wake up. His smart-aleck attitude had been annoying her ever since they left his place. She screamed at him, so he told her to pipe down, unless she wanted to become zombie bait. Time was passing, yet they still hadn't arrived. June skillfully keeps dragging her along by saying they're almost there. He just keeps walking while listening to her complain. This guy treats her like a total brat. He won't even give her a drop of water. Finally, the two of them arrive at a barricade set up to divide the sectors. Minjun explains that they've finally made it. Seeing such a massive barricade, he's positive they'll be just fine. Yeon-ah celebrates hoping to find other survivors, but something's making him uneasy. Our protagonist is getting all worked up. Why aren't there any guards keeping watch around this barricade to ensure safety? Meanwhile, Yeon-ah hasn't seen or heard any zombies around, so it seems like a pretty safe bet here. Suddenly, she suggests they hide somewhere to catch a break. After all, they've been trekking non-stop this whole time. But Minjun shuts that down too. This guy is training to be the next David Goggins. He tells her to quit being extra and just follow him. His words are becoming colder by the minute. Yeon-ah even swears at him for being such a jerk. Well, that's why they were fighting like cats and dogs at the start. Tears stream down her face, while Minjun just gives her a cold stare. He's actually shocked when she genuinely apologizes, but that wasn't why he looked stunned earlier. Our guy is turning pale because zombies are charging right at them at breakneck speed. Gina screams at the top of her lungs when she sees the zombies, and he grabs her hand and hauls ass. Fortunately, they're both faster than the zombies, but for some reason, a safe zone like this is crawling, with walkers. Minjun suggests they just run for now. Luckily, they spot a survivor right up ahead. The man leads them all inside, and quickly tries to close the gate. Yeon-ah is shocked he's doing so much for her, while he keeps telling her to just run and hide. With the other guy's help, the two of them manage to slam the place shut. But unfortunately, the zombies break through the barricade. The barricade is toast. He tells them both to run for their lives. Seeing Yeon-ah turning pale, Minjun tells her to run to the back. Both of them are hauling ass when a zombie starts chasing them. Then he helps her climb up onto some furniture. Sadly, they both have to jump down from a pretty high ledge to reach the next gate. Luckily, the duo lands safely. But Yeon-ah's landing wasn't exactly smooth. She nearly sprained her ankle. Our guy is having some serious bad luck today. He has to put up with so much of her nonsense, only for her to end up letting him down. The zombies are closing in. They're about to get caught. Right now, a choice has to be made. The boy who used to be bullied remembers his past. He recalls the words Yeon-ah once said to him. She had encouraged him to fight back, to stand up to the ones who bullied him. And he also remembers that if he keeps living like this, his life will be miserable, so in this moment, he chooses to be brave. He pulls out his knife ready to face death, and to Yeon-ah's total amazement, he steps up to protect her. Even with death knocking at the door, young Minjun refuses to die a coward.